Chettipally wants to make some comments. He's also very involved with autism, and he has a presentation for us today, and I'll let him get started.
Thank you, Lavinia. It's a pleasure to be, looking at these startups. I'm really amazed at these ideas and the passion that they have. Yes, actually, all three of these startups are so the concepts and the populations that they're trying to reach and help are very near and dear to my heart. So as Lavinia mentioned, I do have a daughter who has autism. And so I want to, see that, a lot of the families that are not having access to this kind of care, do get access. So I really congratulate Shola for, taking up this project. Again, mental health is very important. And especially after the pandemic, this has become a major issue for access and care. So Salma, congratulations for taking on this project. And as you know, my startup, takes VR, robotics, and video gaming into consideration as a potential digital therapy for people with autism. So Charles, I really congratulate you for what you're doing. I think that is the future. There are many applications that will come out of this, I think. But I think we are just scratching the surface. As far as the use of technology to enable care. So I call it technology-enabled care. Some of the ideas that I wanted to share today was, you have the clinical background, right? Some of you have been clinical experts in your areas, and then there is the technology side, which is where you're looking at all these newer technologies and that are making it possible to be used in the care process. And then you have the business side, that is even more complex when it comes to how do you actually make money to be able to bring this innovation into the market. So I mean, we at InnovatorMD and Founder Institute, that's what we want people to learn and teach, and all these experts that come to us and the mentors that we have 65 plus mentors on the excuse me, Founder Institute side, and we do 40 master classes. So each master class is very interesting because each person brings a level of specialty. Recently, I put a post on LinkedIn, and I wanted to share a little bit about that. So let me share my screen. 1 second. I hope you can see that. Most of you know me as founder of InnovatorMD. In my previous work, I was with Kaiser Permanente and designed and developed technology for hospitals and emergency departments, and that's good work. But when it comes to startup founders, how do we support these clinical specialists that see the problems firsthand, right, in their clinics, in their hospitals, in their practices, and they see the problems in a very different way than the rest of the world. Charles described this as very well, where you sit in the waiting room and actually see the problems. But physicians and nurses and techs and pharmacists, they are seeing the problem every single day. And then they come up with these unique solutions. And then sometimes not so unique, but most sometimes you find really fascinating solutions that people come up with. But the problem is these people do not have the, the network. They may not have the knowledge. They may not have the time. They may not have the money to be able to bring that innovation into the market, or at least talk about that innovation. So that was my impetus to start InnovatorMD. So if you see, this is a platform for people who are innovating to come see what people are doing and also learn what they're doing from the experts who have gone before them, and also understand, okay, where do I play a role? How can I bring my innovation to the market? Or how can I help other people bring their innovation to the market? And so that's the main purpose of InnovatorMD. I wanted to, I put a post on LinkedIn recently on different types of startups. And I wanted to share that with you in this group. And this is from my own experience on looking at the innovation ecosystem and the entrepreneurship innovation system. So there are several types, and I'll talk about each of those. The first one is the low-hanging fruit, right? You see a problem, you understand, oh, this is easy. Well, patients cannot get the appointments. And so creating an appointment system, that's a low-hanging fruit. Well, patients need an app for tracking this, that's a low-hanging fruit, which are simple solutions that can be easily done, and that could potentially be widely used. Now, when innovators or when entrepreneurs start thinking about these low-hanging fruit, it is very enticing and also very difficult in a way, because when you start working on a low-hanging fruit problem, that there'll be tons of competition, right? And when there is competition, that means you have to be better than all the other people that are competing in that area. And so, although it looks very easy to do and very enticing, the problem is harder to solve, especially if you're doing a startup in an area where you're doing the low-hanging fruit, which is things like telemedicine or things like that. And the other challenge is that how do you increase adoption when there are 10 different solutions that are offering the same thing? How do you differentiate yourself? What is so special about you that you can actually create this solution and bring it to the market? So that can become very tricky. Usually low-hanging fruits, you don't have to invest a lot of money to build something like this. Usually you can do it over a weekend, or sometimes people build these things in a couple of weeks, doing a sprint, have a few programmers and run with it, right? You can put that on the market very soon. But that's when the challenge starts. How do you differentiate yourself? What is it that prevents other people from doing the same thing, right? What kind of relationships you have that can help you? Let's say, do you know a company that is ready to license this technology or use this technology for their 10,000 patients? Unless you have something like that, it is hard to succeed in a market with a low-hanging fruit solution. And so there are pluses and minuses, so that's what I'm talking about with each of these solutions. The second type I described is called the stone soup. Stone soup, I call it because there is a story behind stone soup. Long time ago, when there was, there was a village of peaceful people, and there was an army of soldiers that were passing through the village. And so it so happened that the villagers got really scared, and they went inside their homes and closed their doors and closed their windows, and they didn't want to do anything with the soldiers. But the soldiers were hungry, so they needed food, and their supplies were running low. So they wanted to have the village people feed them. And so what they did was they set up this big wood burning stove, like a fire pit in the center of the town. And they put a big dish on top of it. And they poured some water, and they put some stones in there, just some rocks, and then started the fire. And then they announced throughout the village saying that, hey, we are having a celebration. We are making the stone soup today for all of us to share and enjoy a meal together. And so the villagers got really interested and wondering, what is a stone soup? How do you make soup out of stones? And then one condition was that if you want to join this party, you have to bring one vegetable or one meat or something to add to the soup. And so, okay, that's a good requirement. And so each of the villagers brought some vegetables, some meat, some spices. So everybody brought something into that soup, and so they put it in the dish. And so lo and behold, there was this wonderful soup that happened, and everybody was able to share. So there, you can create this stone soup as a startup. Now, how do you do that? This means that you create the infrastructure, and then the people bring in their skills. For example, InnovatorMD is a stone soup, which means that you have all these startups that are coming to the InnovatorMD. You have all these experts coming to the InnovatorMD. You have all these investors coming to InnovatorMD. And then when this whole community gets together, that's when the value of what you created happens. Otherwise, it won't happen. If people won't join you, then, so it is a very complex way of doing a startup. But when you do it, it's hard to replicate because it takes a long time, and it takes a huge network, and it takes persistence and grit to be able to do that. So marketplaces are a good example of the stone soup model. The downside is it takes a lot of work. The upside is once you do it, and the network effects start to multiply, and then it becomes a very viable startup. And then the third one I talked about is blue ocean, the blue ocean strategy. What is a blue ocean? So think about competition, right? There are areas where you can go and do a startup where there's no competition. Now, the term blue ocean comes because, if there are a lot of sharks in the ocean and they start eating and biting and killing animals in the ocean, it becomes red. So there is the red ocean where there's a lot of competition, and there's the blue ocean where there's no competition. So if you go into the red ocean, you get killed by competition, or you get eaten, or you have to defend yourself on that side. But if you go to the blue ocean, then there's no competition. But the challenge with blue ocean strategy is that you actually have to create that market. There's no market. There's no blue ocean. You have to create that blue ocean, which means that it's a bigger challenge, right? How do you create a new market when there's no market for your product? Which means that everybody will be wondering what your product does. And then once they start using it, they will like it, hopefully, and they'll use it, and they'll tell their next door neighbors, their friends and family, and then suddenly it starts to spread. And by the time you're big enough, there's not much competition because you're too big to compete with. And that's where you create these markets and become the leader of that market. I would say, my startup Circa Therapeutics is of that blue ocean category. So we are trying to create a new category of therapy for this market that has been that is untapped. And it takes a lot of grit, a lot of time, a lot of work and money to be able to do that. And the fourth one is the moonshot. What is a moonshot? A moonshot is where you take a big audacious goal, like going to the moon. How do you start that? And you've seen the successful companies, moonshots. Elon Musk does a lot of those things, right? The Tesla. How do you become the leader of car manufacturing using only solar power or battery power? Things like that, or going to the Mars. That's a moonshot. Now, the thinking is that moonshots are hard. Raising 10 million to do a startup versus raising 100 million to do a moonshot, right? But what people say is that technically raising 100 million is not 10 times harder than raising 10 million. It depends on your moonshot. And for that, you better have a crazy idea that you can get people excited about, right? If you can get enough people excited about, they will be willing to back you up. They will be willing to fund you if you can bring those people to get excited about your idea. And it's not 10 times harder to do. Maybe it's twice as hard or 3 times as hard. But when you start thinking in those big ideas, bringing big ideas to the market, that you're going to change the world, right? Those are the moonshots. But then, for that, you will need all these other things, which is you need a network, you need connections, you need money. And so hopefully one of you can do a moonshot, and we will watch you do that, and we will support you at InnovatorMD. So those are some of the thoughts I wanted to share with you, and hopefully we'll be part of that journey when you do that. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing here and give it to Lavinia.
Thank you, Uli. Beautifully spoken. Beautiful metaphors for describing startups. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Uli is an author. He is an award-winning researcher, public speaker. He specializes in healthcare technology and innovation consulting. He's also an investor. He's a mentor and advisor. So here you have it, people. Dr. Uli Chettipally.
Thank you. Thank you.
So any questions for Uli?
I'd also like to add that he's a believer. He believes in what you're building and he supports.
Thank you.
He's amazing. So if anybody has questions, please unmute. And Greg, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Uli. Okay. Moonshots. It's been noted that people who do one of those often do more than one. That there's something about the kind of person who gets these big projects done that just seems to be different from most of us. As someone who's looked at this and who's worked with a lot of startups, what do you think are the qualities that distinguish someone who is able to get these big projects done?
There's only, it doesn't need, most people think you have to be smart. Of course, you have to be better than average mark. Most people think that you have to have money. Most people think that you have to have investors on your side. But the biggest thing is, how do you inspire others to join in your moonshot? That, and how do you sustain the grit? Grit is needed for any startup innovator. If you don't have grit, don't even think about doing a startup, because this is a long journey. And people will beat you, people will block you, people will shame you, all kinds of things. You better have thick skin. Thick skin is essential. But grit is something that you consistently keep pushing through all these obstacles. So I would say people with a strong sense of this purpose, that they can translate that into inspiration for others. Those are the ones that can do moonshots. And not all moonshots will be successful, of course. You do it for 20 years and then you give up, right? Or 50 years. But to be able to, you better be well prepared to be able to do those, because these take a long time. So minimum 10 years, you should be able to dedicate yourself.
I actually had some general comments based on my experience with working with startups at Founders Institute and talking to other founders before. My personal experience, I have, some people have heard me talking about this, but just to add to like some specifics to general discussions about startups. So I think it's very important to keep in mind the user experience, the customer who you're building it for. And I keep saying that you have to have a solution that's easy and people would come back to it easily. It's not really hard to access it and to come back to it. And sometimes it requires a designer to sort it out and make it user-friendly. And I know there are a lot of founders in the audience, and if you guys want to chime in and interrupt me, feel free. I've talked to Preeti Dugar. She's the CEO and founder for BlinkPad, one of our partners at InnovatorMD. And I don't know if she has any comments. Dr. Raman also wants to make a comment, so please unmute and join the discussion.
Quick question, Uli. What is the youngest person that you have mentored? I mean, obviously not a physician.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Last year, we had, I think, 14 or 15 high schoolers that came to our conference. Well, actually, the one before the pandemic was the most fun part. Is that these high schoolers, I mean, obviously, they need a certificate that shows that they're doing some community service and volunteering and all of that. But they come to these conferences and they sit and listen to these people speak, all these experts. And so I love mentoring high school students because, their imagination and their, so you're sowing a seed of innovation in their hearts. So high school students, college students, I have everybody. I have physicians, Lavinia is a great example. And I think we have one more that'll be, Neela will be joining us soon. So physicians, anybody who is interested in innovation, I think, we can mentor and expose them to what others are doing, right? You just have to ignite that spark. So igniting the spark is what we do at InnovatorMD. That matchstick in the logo.
Oh, thank you.
So I would like to add that Dr. Chettipally had a very good podcast. I think there's still a link on LinkedIn where he discusses this, the need to mentor and share this experience to network and grow the knowledge, remaining curious. You want to comment?
Yeah. So one of the things is that when you tap into these young minds, they'll start questioning you. They'll start questioning the status quo. They'll start questioning why are we doing this, or why not this way? And so, in a way, we that have been in the industry, healthcare industry for a while, our brains are corrupted in a way that you cannot think beyond what you learned, right? We have been conditioned to do this a certain way, and then we stop questioning. And so when you bring younger minds into the play, that's when they'll start questioning things, and then they will have some ideas that you never thought of. And then when you inspire, they have tons of energy, tons of ideas, and they can really build momentum if they want to. And so you start there. One of the persons that I was trying to get on our conference circuit was, she was like a 15-year-old, or on the Time magazine cover. Unbelievable kind of work that she did on in the STEM area. When people with science and STEM backgrounds, when they are quiet, when they don't speak up, when they're not highlighted, when they are snubbed, bad things happen to the society. Bad things, when I say bad things, people with less knowledge and people with less commitment will speak up. And that's one of the problems with social media, is that it polarizes and makes people famous for the wrong reasons, right? And that's why it's important for mentors and experts and scientists and doctors to be active in the innovation space, to be active in the social media, to be able to not get drowned by these negative forces that tend to discredit science. And
Yes.
Who else is there, right? If you don't have scientists and doctors, I fear for that society.
So also, I want to make a point that actually all these new ideas give us, the people who are already in a routine, they give us energy and help with, developing new ideas. Nila, you raised your hand?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that they actually have entrepreneur camps for little girls. So I put my 7 and 8-year-old in a CEO camp. And so now they came to me and they said they want to create like a rock painting company. And when we went to this one festival, they saw food trucks, like, Mom, do you think this is a good business? So now that seed has been planted in their brain. And so they're definitely like thinking about it. And they asked me like, Mom, do you want to go on Shark Tales? And I was like, it's Shark Tank, but it's pretty cute though. So there's a lot of opportunities for little girls through Girl Scouts.
Hey, that's a good name for a for a startup showcase, Shark Tales. Thank you for sharing that.
Vivian?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, Uli, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say that, one of the reasons why physicians are I would say are in a position where they don't have any control over, what happens to them, and they get burnt out in their jobs, is because we have delegated the innovation and the business side to non-physicians, right? We are the scientists, we are the researchers, we are the PhDs and MDs. We understand science, and we have dedicated our lives to serve humanity. But when when the business folks get in and control, the business, then physician is downgraded to just a provider, which is oh yeah, your job is to see 25 patients a day, and that's it. Don't talk too much, or don't mess with anything else. And there's no reason why physicians cannot run businesses. There's no reason why physicians cannot use technology or innovate using technology. And they are some of the most educated and intelligent and hardworking and passionate people, right? So we want to support that.